Hey, welcome back to Pave the Way podcast. I'm your host, Greg Helbeck, and I have Mark Owens on the show once again. He is a frequent flyer on the show. We have so much to talk about. I feel like Mark and I chat on the phone quite frequently now. And we figured it really would make sense to bring Mark on as a guest for the third time because one of our mutual friends, Steve Pesavento, had him on the show. And really, Steve and Mark talked a lot about Mark's background and kind of what he was doing before he got into just business in general. He had a very interesting story, and we're going to share the whole entire story today from beginning to end. It's going to be more about Mark and his story and the lessons that he's learned and some advice he can give folks listening to this, and less about real estate, but we'll talk a little bit about real estate at the end. But I've been looking forward to this for, the time we've had scheduling it. So Mark, thanks so much for coming back on the show. And I'm really looking forward to today's conversation.
Greg, thank you so much for inviting me on to share this story that I've kind of kept hidden for, many, many years up until just really the past few months. There's a phase of my life where, for years I was ashamed and embarrassed and I kind of hid in the shadows. Like I didn't want to let people know about my previous life. And because, I've got a really, today I've got a fantastic reputation and I've got a lot of friends and people that care about me. And I was afraid that if people found out about, my teen years and early 20s, that it would kind of tarnish my reputation and change people's opinion of me. And I really lived in fear of that for many years. And, but I always felt that, I've been talking about the real estate stuff. I've been speaking at events and meetups and stuff like that for, maybe 15 years. But I always felt like that's part two of the story. Part one of the story is what we're actually going to talk about. And I thought that part one of the story is actually the really important stuff, the stuff that could help more people, whether they're in real estate or not. It doesn't even matter. It's just about overcoming some huge obstacles in your life and some tools and things that I learned that helped me to get out of the life that I was in. And I'm a little nervous talking about it. Because the truth is that I'm still ashamed and embarrassed about a lot of the stuff that I did and situations that I put myself in that were 100% my responsibility and my fault. I'm not a victim of anything except my own poor decisions. But I'm really excited to talk about this now in hopes that it can help, steer some other people in a different direction. And so I'm really looking forward to this. A little nervous about it, but I am looking forward to it. And you can pull this out of me, man. I still get it, but I think you can get a little bit more detail. So, man,
I think this show in particular is going to really be able to help a lot of people because they're going to hear your story and then they're going to get a lot of inspiration and really like, wow, that's what he went through. That's where he came from. And this is where he's at now. If he can do it, I can do it. And that's really what our goal is here on the show today. So Mark, let's kind of get right into it. So can you just share a little bit about kind of, number one, we'll start with your childhood and then really how you started to get into trouble, maybe the age, and then we'll start transition into that area.
Okay. So I grew up in Baltimore City in a blue collar working class neighborhood. When I was a kid, like most of the other kids in my neighborhood, like their dream was to grow up and get a job working at one of the factories in Baltimore. Like that was it. Like there was nobody ever talked about going to college or any of that stuff. It was just like, man, if I can get a job driving a forklift like my Uncle Johnny at McCormick's, I'm going to be set. And that was it. And it was also the neighborhood where people had the homemade tattoos, where they were all fucked up and bowl burns where people would smoke weed out of a metal pipe and it would get so hot and then they'd burn their skin to put a ring on it. That was like where I grew up at. And I was from a broken home. My father was a drug addict and abusive to my mother. And I think they split up when I was like 3 or 4 months old. Didn't meet him until I was 17. I had another stepfather from like the age of 2 to 6. I have his last name. I had him from 2 to 6 and then he left. And then I had my mother got married again when I was like 10. And she's still with that guy who's been a phenomenal. He was, he's a stepfather, but he was like better than most biological fathers could have ever been. He supported me through so much and he stuck by my mother's side. So I have to really give him a tremendous amount of credit because he's an amazing guy. But this is back in the 70s, man. I mean, this is like a different time, different culture, different values that our society had and all that stuff. And, you know, today, if it's, you know, my mother had me when she was 17. If girls are 17 today, I mean, they have TV shows on glorifying it. You know, it's not a big deal.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, you know, but back in 1965, when I was born, 17-year-old girl having a kid, like, you know, that was like, you know, not really, it was frowned upon. My mother quit school in the 10th grade. You know, by the time I was 10 years old, she was on her third marriage. And, you know, things never really felt right. And I never felt like I really fit in because all my other friends, like their father was home, and he might have been a bum, but he was there and they knew him. And so I never really felt like I fit in. And it's probably like around the age of 12, I started smoking cigarettes and weed. And then, you know, we moved from Baltimore City out to Baltimore County when I was about 13. Partly because I was getting in trouble and, you know, stuff like that. I think my parents wanted to pull me out of that environment. But once I started smoking weed and drinking and smoking cigarettes, like now I fit in like with that crowd. No matter how fucked up that crowd was, I had a home. Like I had because I wasn't really good in sports. I'm smart, but I didn't put the effort into school. So I didn't fit in with the kids that were good in school. I didn't fit in with the sports guys. But I've really fit in really fucking good with people that like to drink and get high. And so, you know, by the age of, let me see, you know, when I was 14, it was, you know, like speed, and 15, it was, you know, acid and, you know, inhalants, you know, like toluene's the chemical. That chemical is in a lot of shit. It's in glue, it's in spray paint, it's in fucking jet fuel, it's in all kind of shit. And, you know, 16, I'm, you know, Quaaludes, mushrooms, acid, you know, alcohol, you know, everything. And when I was 17, I got kicked out of high school and moved back to my grandmother's house back in the city. And it's funny, I get kicked out in November of my senior year, and by April I had my GED. But what's even like the fucked up part is in February, when I was 17, a couple months before I turned 18, I started shooting coke and heroin. Wow. And I was afraid of needles at the time. Like, you know, like if I went to the doctor, like I'm like turning my fucking head, I'm like my finger, I was like terrified of needles.
Yeah.
First time I ever saw somebody shoot coke, it was a friend of mine's brother. I was like, man, you know, what's that? Yeah, how much is it? Man, I'll try it. And then shit really got out of control, man. I mean, like from, you know, I don't want to name, you know, list like all the bad things that I've done because I didn't get caught doing all of them. But, you know, from the age of 17 to 24, you know, it was like, I was the typical, you know, the drug addict that you see on the, you know, on the corner. I was doing things, I was in that life. I mean, it was, you know, stealing, breaking into houses, breaking into cars, stealing cars, robbing stores, robbing drug dealers, living on the street, living in abandoned houses, in and out of rehab, getting locked up a whole bunch of times. You know, there was, you know, times where, you know, I went to a rehab in California, walked out, I was living on the streets in California for a few weeks.
Where in California?
West Hollywood. Well, the drug rehab was in Venice. And
Venice, a drug rehab in Venice out of all places?
It was right on the fucking boardwalk, man, right on the beach. And got kicked. I actually walked out of that. It's a funny story. It's kind of a, you know, I don't want to bore everybody with it, but I went out to this drug rehab, and I ran into a guy there that I knew from another drug rehab in Baltimore. Yeah. It's a small world, man. It is a small world. And, you know, I told him, I was like the second day, I'm like, man, I feel like getting the fuck out of here. And I was hoping he would talk me into staying. And he said, man, let's go. And, let's go. You know, off we went. And I think, you know, we wound up in West Hollywood. West Hollywood might have been different then. I've actually went there like maybe 2 years ago. But, you know, you meet other street people and are like, yeah, man, here's the abandoned house where people are sleeping at. And there's this house up the street where they're selling it, but the, you know, kitchen windows unlocked so you can sneak in to take a shower and all, but just make sure you clean up so then nobody knows we were in there. And, you know, I remember the first night I fell asleep in this fucking house, me and this friend of mine. And it was just like 3 or 4 people in like the living room. And I woke up the next morning, there was like 20 people in there. I mean, like I got people using my leg as a pillow. I mean, it was crazy. And,
oh my goodness! You were homeless, sleeping in abandoned houses. We buy properties for a living, and like, this is happening.
Yeah.
Probably one in Austin we did. The guy was in the carport sleeping. I'm like,
Yep. Yeah, it wasn't me.
it wasn't us.
But you know, it's, you know, the street people, you know, there's actually like a community where they kind of help each other. And they're like, man, this church, you know, I think it was Vista Avenue or Vista Street was the name of the street where the abandoned house was. Because I actually went there. I went out of my way to visit this house a couple of years ago. And you know, there's a soup kitchen down the street where you would, you know, go down there every day and they'd have lunch, you know, bag lunch to give you at 12 o'clock. And, you know, you go in the grocery store and, you know, just grab some food and take in the bathroom to eat, you know, just whatever you got to do. And I really didn't need a lot of food to eat back then because I was, you know, spending all my money, you know, or whatever, you know, hustle I could do to buy drugs. And, it's interesting, just as a side note, I stopped by that church a couple of years ago. I actually went to West Hollywood because I wanted to stop by this church to see if they were still there, and they were. And I wanted to, you know, just thank them for, you know, being there because it really did make a difference. And I wanted to come back and you know, like make a donation. I mean, there's, you know, I mean, I guess you can get a free lunch if you're living in the street, but I wanted to pay my way and, you know, and just help to support them for other people that are out there. And they were kind of surprised, like, really, are you sure you want to give us this? I'm like, yeah, I mean, you know, it's like, of course I do. And they were like really happy to see that somebody that used to live in the streets that was coming there for lunch, like made it, you know, they made it out of the gutter. And but that's, you know, that's kind of like the very quick version of, you know, of the story.
I have a couple follow-up questions. So
sure.
First one is, I think you said also you winded up from West Hollywood. Didn't you trickle back down to the East Coast to Jacksonville?
Yeah, I ended up hitchhiking home from Hollywood. I missed a court date for something. It was actually, I was out there twice. I went out there and then I was out there for a few weeks and then my parents like, you know, we'll buy you, you know, a plane ticket. So I came home and then, you know, I was trying to get my shit together. And a couple of weeks later, the guy that I was out there with called me up and he stole a credit card. He's like, man, I'm back out in Hollywood, get a hotel, get a rental car. You want to come out and party? I'm like, sure. So,
you back out there?
So he, you know, went down to the airport and there was a plane ticket there and I flew out. He was supposed to give me a round trip and the son of a bitch got me a one-way ticket. And, you know, I got out there and, you know, we were partying with the same people that we were partying with before, except now, you know, we got a hotel room and they're still sleeping in the abandoned.
Yeah.
And he, we ended up losing the card. You know, we went to a liquor store and they, you know, looked in the book and found out it was stolen and, you know, they took the card and, you know, I ended up hitchhiking home from that. I did it in 4 days, man, LA to Baltimore in 4 days.
That's crazy. And you just literally were on the street like this.
Yeah.
You got a ride.
I know the exact route I went. I got on 101 and took that down to 10, took 10 across to 95, went up 95 along the Arizona-California border to Needles, California. And this is a funny story, man. This is a lesson, and I've actually told this lesson, but I didn't tell the whole story, but this is like a life lesson that is so fucking important. So this guy actually, I hitchhiked from, I can't remember all the places, but this guy on 95 picked me up, gave me a gallon of water, and, you know, I think he might have given me like $20 or something. Like, people will give you money if they see, like, man, you're in the fucking street. And I didn't ask for anything, but people were just willing to help.
Yeah.
And so I hitchhike up the Needles. I get this little gas station, which is still there, and I got something to eat, something to drink, and I walk over to the ramp where the interstate is, and there's a dude sitting underneath a tree. And he looks at me and he says, man, this place sucks, man. He says, I've been sitting here for 2 days. And of course, I'm like, oh, fuck, man. I mean, like, I'm out in the middle of nowhere. Like, this is the desert. Like, I'm thinking, I'm from Baltimore City, man. I thought the desert was built up. I thought they had, like, gas stations and shit like that. I didn't know that, like, you could go, like, 100 miles and not see anything. And, you know, there was no Google Maps or anything back then. I just thought, you know, like, it's not like that anymore. But it was like that. And so I get out to this on-ramp. And this guy's sitting there and hasn't had a ride for 2 days. And I'm sitting there and I'm looking at him. And that's a problem, right? It's like, this guy's sitting here for 2 days. I don't know if he's got any money, anything to eat. I don't know what's going on, but, like, that seems like a pretty hopeless situation. So what I did was, I'm not going to sit underneath a tree with this guy. I'm going to do something different. And I did what I usually do. I just kept walking down the ramp and just putting some effort into it. I didn't want to look like some lazy guy, some dirty, stinky dude laying under a tree, giving it a half-ass attempt to get a ride. I'm walking towards my destination. If it takes me 4 months to get home, I'm going to walk for 4 months, but I'm not just going to sit underneath the damn tree. And man, I'm telling you, it was like the second car that drove by. It was a red pickup truck with an old guy and his wife driving a truck. They're probably 7 years old, and they pulled over. And they said, "You need a ride?" And I'm like, "Yeah."
Yeah.
What do you think I'm doing here, man? Yes, I need a ride. And they're like, "How far are you going?" I'm like, "Man, I'm going as far as I can go." And they said, "We're going to Kingman, Arizona." I'm like, "Man, that's great." And they're like, "Hop in the back." And I'm jumping in the back, and I'm seeing that guy down underneath the trees, been sitting there for 2 days. And I got a ride in like 3 minutes. And I'm thinking like, man, go. Like, that guy's bad news. I don't want him running up asking if he can get in here with me. It's like, I'm solo. And they took off, and that guy was still sitting underneath the tree looking at me. I'm sure he was.
And you're in the car just like.
Yeah. And the lesson that still applies today is like, man, when you need something, I don't care if it's a ride or a loan or whatever, like, let's just don't sit on a tree on the side of the fucking road just doing a half-ass attempt. Like, man, you got to put some effort into it, because when people see you putting effort into something, they're going to be much more willing to help you. And that's a lesson that stuck with me. And I honestly, like, I hadn't put all that together in the back of that pickup truck. I just knew that my goal is Baltimore, and I'm going to start fucking walking. I hope I get a ride, but I'm going to keep working towards my goal as long as it takes. I have to go home. Mm. And that guy didn't have that mindset. He's just going to sit there and do the least amount possible, leaning up against a tree with his thumb out, doing the least amount. And that same philosophy has carried me through to where I am today. It's like, I'm not just going to sit there, reading a book and wishing, I had 100 doors, or, wishing I was worth, a lot of money. I'm going to take steps to make that shit happen. And it's the same philosophy. It's the same thing. And that's the most basic form right there. Is just that on that ramp, and I actually went to that ramp and did a short video on that a couple of years ago. The good news is that the guy got a ride, because he wasn't underneath the tree anymore. The guy got a ride. It's been like, 30 years. So
30 years, he's still there. Like, with a beard.
It like mummified, it would have been like
mummified. So that's a great lesson. And it's like you can use that story, of that unfortunate situation you're in to obviously now transition, and you can use that to share with others, obviously, to show them like, hey, you gotta put some effort in, whether you're homeless, trying to go to Baltimore, or whether you're trying to get into business or real estate. So, Mark, what was really, at the end of the day, we got into some pretty good detail here. What was your absolute breaking point where you were like, okay, like, this is the rock bottom of rock bottom? And then what were the first steps that you took to start to get yourself out of this, a dark period of your life, quite frankly, where you were, homeless and drug addict and not making the best choices? Where was the breaking point? And then when did you start to say, you know what, I've had it? What was the thing that triggered you? So we'll start with a breaking point. Okay.
So let's, I'm going to back up a little bit. The drug addiction stuff is progressive. Like, you don't start off, smoking weed and then you're robbing like drug dealers 3 weeks later. Like, it doesn't, usually doesn't work like that. It usually, happens gradually. And the stuff that, that I'm going to share with you is, it's stuff that's been very personal to me for years. And again, stuff that I'm ashamed of and embarrassed by, but I want to share it because I think there are a lot of lessons there that can help people. If I didn't think I could help people with it, I'd still be like hiding from it. I wouldn't tell anybody about it. But the goal is to help people. So, part of the reason that I didn't want to share it is because, I care about people's opinions of me. I really do. But the difference between now and before is, now the people's opinions that I care about are people that I respect and look up to. I used to care about people's opinions that were like losers. I don't care about their opinions anymore. I care about people like you, like people that are like decent, honest people that are like living a more traditional life, like doing the right thing. And I care about those people's opinions. So for me to share this, it's like, I hope that I'm able to do it without, getting any negative feedback about it. But I'm going to do what I want to do anyway. I'm going to share the story. So that lifestyle can take you to a lot of places. Went to see girls on the street, doing what they do for $10. And guys aren't that, I don't know if you call it lucky or not, but we don't really have those opportunities. So we have to do other stuff, you know. So we'll break into cars, we'll break into houses, and if it gets bad enough, we'll rob stores or banks or whatever. And I've done like all those things. And when I was maybe 24, you know, I'd robbed a couple stores randomly. I'd robbed a bunch of drug dealers, and I just got to this point where I was like, man, I don't give a fuck anymore. It's like I'm gonna probably be dead in a couple months anyway. And I just went, you know, I went all out, and I started doing robberies, and I was doing them like every day. I'd go steal a car, rob a few stores, use the car a couple days, go steal another car, rob a few stores, stay in hotels, you know, and just living that life for maybe a month and a half. And I finally got busted. I ran a red light in a stolen car, like 2:00 in the morning, man. You know, it was like,
Oh my goodness.
just robbed the store, just bought some drugs. I got a girl with me. We got a motel on Pulaski Highway, and we're on our way back to get high. And I'm sitting there at the light, and there's nobody around. And I'm like, man, I really want to get high. And
You went right through the red light. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, and we went through it, and I looked over the rearview mirror and saw a cop coming up over the hill behind me. And, you know, I thought, man, fuck. You know, the car, I think it was a 280Z. It was really fast, the car that I stole. But the speedometer didn't work, so I couldn't tell how fast I was going. I just know I was driving at times on the Beltway where the speed limit was like 55, and I was passing cars like they were parked. I mean, I know it was a fast car. It was easily plus 110, 120 miles an hour.
This is in Baltimore, too. This is in Baltimore.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm thinking, you know, I get up to the next light, and there's like 3 cars. There's 3 lanes, and there's a car in each lane. I'm thinking, like, man, fuck, where are all these people doing out at 2:00 in the morning? Like, and they're taking up all 3 lanes. Like, I can't even go anywhere. So I pull up in the middle lane, and I'm sitting there just waiting to see what happens. And the cop pulls up behind me, and he's just sitting there. And then 2 other cops came down the cross street and pulled up in front of the 3 cars with their, you know, lights on, and they jumped out with their guns out. And the cop behind me jumped out with his gun out.
Oh, because they knew it was stolen. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's all they knew at that point. And I looked over at the girl I was with, who I'm still friends with, and she's doing really well now. She's doing really good. And I said, Barb, give me the drugs. And I took the drugs, and I wasn't going to just get out with my hands off. Like, I'm never going to just give up. And, I opened the car opened the car door, and I got with my hands up, and I looked around, and then I just took off running, gritting my teeth the whole time. Cause I'm thinking, man, if I get shot, it's probably going to fucking hurt, but I'm going to keep running. And,
Goodness.
Yeah, they caught me about 10 minutes later. And,
where did they get you?
It was, it was in like a warehouse parking lot. I climbed over one fence, and because I knew they couldn't, like they got a hard
They
street
couldn't.
and all this shit. I'm like 24 years old, man. Like I can, I was, 30 years younger than I am now. I was fit, man. It's like, if on foot, you're not fucking catching me.
Yeah.
You know what? But, I was trapped in this like warehouse parking lot. It was all fences, and I went over another fence between 2 buildings. And when I jumped down, they were like right there, and I had nowhere else to go.
Yeah.
And so I was called. And that was September 8th of 1989. And, at the time, I had like 20-something robberies in Baltimore City that I was charged with. I had a few in Baltimore County, 1 in Harford County, 1 in Carroll County. I had a bank robbery in Philadelphia that I had a warrant for. And another robbery charge in Pennsylvania. I was actually on probation during all this shit. I had a violation of probation, which was insignificant, I guess. And so, I get to, Baltimore County. They took me to Baltimore County Detention Center because Baltimore City was too full. And health-wise, I looked like I was already dead. I was just like, I weighed 138 pounds. Today I weigh 208. So I weighed like 70 pounds less than I weigh now. And on October 2nd, I'd been in jail for, 4 weeks, 3.5, 4 weeks. And I tried to escape out of Baltimore County Detention Center. And I'd almost gotten out. And if I had 10 more minutes, I'd have got out. I was able to break off this piece of steel off of one of the bunk beds. It was like a 4-foot long piece of steel. And I got the screen off the window. They have this like real heavy duty mesh. Got that off. And then they have this like cast iron type metalwork that almost looks like diamond shaped across the window. And I got a hole big enough in that to get through. And I was prying, it was a plexiglass window, and I was prying that out when they ran in the cell and called me. And from that point, I went on lockup for 6 months, which is just awaiting trial for all these charges. And lockup is where you're locked in a cell for 23 hours a day by yourself. And you get out for an hour and by yourself. And I had a lot of time to think. And, my attorney, he's like, what the fuck are you doing? He's like, can't you even behave yourself in jail? Like, what the fuck is wrong with you? It's like, if you can just stay out of trouble, you could probably be home by the time you're 30, young enough to start a whole new life. And that kind of planted the seed for me. That was like the seed, like, okay, so my life isn't over. I've still got time. And then the girl that I was with, I actually just talked to her this morning. She ended up getting clean. Like she, by the time, that 6 months in lockup, she probably had like 3 months clean. She got clean just a couple weeks after her and I got in trouble, because I admitted to everything. Like, I didn't want her to get in trouble. She was just along for the ride. She didn't, she wasn't do anything. And it was, that was one of my conditions when I sat down to, the guy was like, what did you, because they found a bag, like a drop bag underneath the driver's seat. And they're like, we know you robbed something. What'd you rob? I'm like, all right, listen, it's going to take a while. And I'll tell you everything I've done, but she had nothing to do with it. Like, you got to let her go, because she was just like a girl who was out partying with me. She didn't have any involvement in any of this shit. So they agreed to let her go and drop any charges against her. And then we sat down for many hours and went through everything. And so anyway, so I'm on lockup now for 6 months. And, she got clean. My, lawyer's telling me, look, man, you're going to be out early enough if you do everything you're supposed to do. And we do everything we're supposed to do as the lawyer. You can be out by the time you're 30, which was like 5 years. So I'm listening to that. I'm thinking, all right, well, I do have another chance to get this shit, to straighten my life out. But I didn't know how to do it because, I'd been through drug rehabs. I get kicked out of half of them. AA didn't work, NA didn't work, church didn't work, moving to other states didn't work, girlfriends, that didn't do drugs didn't work. Like, none of that shit worked. And there was one thing that all those things had in common. All those things had in common is I was looking outside for the help. Mm. And I didn't realize it at the time, but, so I get off lockup, and it was either April 20th or April 22nd. I can't remember the date. Now, it was one of those two dates, 1990, and I'm on this pod or tier, and there was a damn book laying on the table. And the book was called You Can If You Think You Can. And it was written by Norman Vincent Peale. He wrote a book that was famous back in those days called The Power of Positive Thinking.
Yeah. That's famous.
I had never read a self-help book. I had never, I had no concept of that stuff. I'm just thinking, like, you go to AA and NA, and it's like, if you fuck up, it's your fault. But if you do good, it's like somebody else gets the credit. Like, and that never really worked for me. And so I was like, I was already like, I had the desire, like, I want to change. I don't want to spend the rest of my life like this, and I want to change. I just don't know how to fucking do it, because nothing else that I've tried works. And I started reading this book. Man, I'm in jail. I got plenty of time.
Yeah.
Started reading the book. And halfway, and back then you could smoke cigarettes in jail. I smoked. I had a couple cartons under my bed for playing poker. That's like money in jail. And halfway through this book, the author had convinced me that I could if I think I can. It starts with believing in yourself, which was totally foreign to me, because if I look at myself, it's just one failure and fuck up after another for the last, 12 or 13 years of my life. And so it was really difficult for me to ever think that I can, if I think I can do anything other than fuck up, because that's all I'd been doing. And so the author had really convinced me that, man, if I believe in myself, I have the power to change anything in my life. He convinced me of that, and I believed it. Halfway through the book, I had a half pack of cigarettes in my pocket, and there was a guy, Frank, I don't know, I probably shouldn't say his name, but a guy named Frank that was one of my jail friends. I was like, here, Frank, take these fucking cigarettes. I'm done. I quit. And he's like, crazy? I'm like, I'm fucking quit. I'm done. I'm reading this book, and I'm quit. I'm done.
They probably thought you were crazy, man, because that's not what typical people in jail do. Read self-help books.
No, it's not. And it was funny because in Baltimore, I'm fairly well known because of the real estate stuff. Yeah. In jail, everybody knew me, like everybody, because I was the guy that almost escaped from the escape-proof jail. And it was just one of those weird things. And it's funny because I was actually like shy and kind of introverted. Like I didn't want to talk to anybody. I'm just like, I didn't know what to say unless we're talking about drugs. I don't want to talk about it anyway. And I quit smoking, and I sat down and I made a list, because when I looked at my self-esteem, it was all fucked up. Like I felt like a loser, like a bum. Everything I'd done was just fucking up since I was 12 years old. Yeah, there were temporary times for a month or two I'd get shit together, but it never lasted. And I sat down with a piece of paper and a pen, and I started writing down all the good shit that I could think about that I'd done in my life. It was a short list, but at the top of the list was I quit smoking cigarettes. And, and the drug and alcohol thing, it's a mind, how do I put this? Like, you can be in jail for 3 years and not drink and not do drugs, but you're still an addict. Because the only reason you're not doing them is because you don't have access to them. But your way of thinking is the same. There are people that are locked up now you can't smoke in jail. There are people that are locked up for 3 years, haven't had a cigarette for 3 years. They get out, and within an hour they're smoking. Because in their mind, they're still smokers. They just haven't had access to cigarettes.
Their identity, it's that identity.
It's the way that they see themselves. I still drink, I'll still do drugs, and I'm a smoker. Even though they haven't smoked in years. They have no addiction at all. And so they run right back to it. And for me, it was just looking at that and just saying, you know what, like, I can make this decision. Like, this book convinced me. I started writing this list of the things that I had done. And it was a very small list, but, it was maybe 10 things good things that I could think of that I'd done my whole life. But I wrote them down. Some of them were, not very significant. Maybe, despite all the bullshit, I was actually a kind of polite guy. I'd hold the door for people. And, if the truth is, like, if I was in a grocery store and saw some lady drop her bag of groceries, I'd stop and help her pick them up. And I was writing all that stuff down. And I thought to myself, as I'm trying to like put all this shit together, because I was still, my life was like a wreck. I'm in jail, and, it's like things aren't really going well, but I want to start to put my life back together. And, so I started to put that list together, and, man, I'd lost my train of thought. There was something else that I wanted to say. I'm sure it'll come back, but there's so much to talk about.
So you're in jail, you're reading this book. The thing, it sounds to me like really the takeaway for the listeners is that, you obviously, that was your breaking point. Like, you robbed you stole the car, you got arrested, you're in jail. And now you're like, the thing, I think the big takeaway that I got was like, your attorney was like, listen, man, you might've made some big mistakes now, but if you accept the fact that this is what you did, now you have 4 or 5 years, you can get out by 30. And if you're 30, you're still young enough to really make some serious changes. And then obviously divine intervention, you found that book, and that book, it sounds like that was kind of like your aha moment, right?
It was. Absolutely.
It was like, wow. It was almost like time slowed down at that point for you. And you said, wow, it
saved my life. And it was like it wasn't like a dimmer switch where I was slowly thinking, well, maybe this. It was like on and off. It was in an instant, and change usually happens in an instant. And that's the way that it happened. And but there's something else I want to add that I think is an important lesson for many people, not for everybody, but for a lot of people, is I never saw myself as a victim of anything. I accepted 100% responsibility for every bad decision I ever made, whatever it was. It's like, this is me. It's like, it says right on the pack of cigarettes, Surgeon General's warning, cigarettes kill you. It's right on the cigarettes.
It's right on the cigarettes.
So it's like, I'm not a victim. If I go buy a pack of cigarettes, it says right on, might kill you, and you do it. It's like, whose fault is it? You know, I never had anybody from a cigarette manufacturer come to my house and say, man, we'll pay you to smoke. No, I'm going to the store buying the shit. You know, it's like,
yeah. Your choice.
My childhood was a little fucked up, but it can be fucked up, and that's okay. But that doesn't give you permission or give me permission to go out and fuck other people's lives up. You know, so that's like, I always saw it as like, I was never the victim. I always accepted responsibility for everything that I've done. And there's a lot more I want to tell you, but I'll let you get ahead, man. There's some stuff that I'm really excited to talk about.
Man, this is a very, I mean, this podcast, I mean, just getting your story out and like really seeing kind of where you came from. And obviously we started, obviously, childhood, got into, you know, how you started making some poor decisions. And now, you know, we got to the breaking point. A lot of good lessons along the way here that I think the listeners are pulling out. So like, obviously, you know, let's fast forward, you know, what did you do? Like when you got out of jail and you were officially not really in the woods anymore from like the law perspective, what did you like? Cause obviously I want to end this show, you know, once we're done recording today, like with like where you're at now, what you were able to do. So kind of like the full transformation. But what did you start to do when you got out? I know you shared something, I think before we hit record with a bank account, you immediately started taking action and you were doing a lot of things that were not common for people who just got out of jail.
Yeah. You know, I'm going to tell you some of the things that I did that were important. And again, we're not, you know, jail, prison, whatever. For me, it was rehab because my thoughts were, look, I'm going to have to do this time. I don't have any choice, but I don't have to waste it. I can get something out of this. I can walk out of here with, you know, more education, more resources, a better head on my shoulders than I had when I came in. So I don't have to waste this. And, you know, I went to school for 2 years and got my associate's degree. It's actually the same shit. You know, the college professors actually come to the prison and teach the classes, and you get the same books, the same tests as the people outside. And, you know, you know, I got my 2-year degree. I went to a construction class for 6 months. You know, before I got out, I actually was able to save some money in jail, and I'd saved up a little over $500, and I opened a bank account. And my grandmother helped me do it. You know, I sent her the money, and she went to the bank and like helped me with the paperwork and all. And you know, I got a bank account started, and then what I did was I got a loan from the bank. I got a $500 loan. And it was a secured loan where, you know, they just held my savings account as security in the event that I didn't pay it back. And I was doing this to buy credit, you know, to start to build credit. And it actually worked. You know, I got this loan. I was, you know, sending like $15 a month or whatever to the bank. And because what they did is, you know, I had $500 that I'd saved in jail, sent that to the bank. They lend me $500 that comes back to me in jail, and then I'm just paying them back.
Yeah. You're building that credit up. Yeah. It's smart.
And then, you know, when I got out, you know, a couple months later, I went and just finished paying it off. And I started doing that. One of the things that is probably had the best impact in my life that I got out of that was, you know, I had a girlfriend in high school that wasn't in drugs or anything like that. And I was in love with her. She loved me. And, but, you know, we were together and I thought we were going to, you know, if I could just keep my shit together, you know, like she's the one. And I ended up breaking up with her and broke her heart. And I had always felt like so terrible about that, but I knew that she was going to graduate from high school, go to college, you know, and live a good life. And I knew that I was probably going to be dead or in jail by the time I was 21, something like that. And I was right. You know, I was in jail several times by the time I was 21, and she was, you know, a junior in college. And before I wrote her when I first got locked up in September. I actually remember her house address, and, you know, I wrote her a letter and just said, hey, you know, this is how things turned out. You know, I'm locked up in Baltimore County Detention Center. I'm probably gonna be locked up for many years. And, you know, just want to let you know how things turned out. And I just, you know, hope that things are good with you. And she wrote me back and, you know, told me about her life, which was like how I expected, you know, graduated from college, had an apartment, had a great job, and had a boyfriend that she was with for many years. And so I just, you know, left it at that. You know, I was just wanted to give her an update, let her know she really wasn't missing much. And then about 6 months before I got out, I wrote her again, I knew I'd made parole, but it was going to be like, or I was actually going to be going up for parole, and I figured I would get it because I was like like the perfect inmate. And I wrote her a letter maybe 6 months, 7 months before I got out, and just said, hey, and I'm getting out, things are going good, got my head straight. And she wrote me back and said, okay, well, I'm glad to hear that. Don't write me anymore. So I'm sitting there, and this is back to this thing, like obstacles,
Yeah.
You do sales training, right? It's like somebody says no, and then you haven't asked enough times.
Yeah. Exactly.
And you got to wear them down. And I thought, okay, well, I'm going to write her one more letter, and I'm going to tell her everything I've always wanted to tell her, like my deepest secrets and stuff that I was always, like I'm just going to lay it all out there. And if she doesn't respond to that, like that's okay, because I'm getting all this stuff off my chest and I can move on with my life and all that. So I sent her that letter, and a couple weeks later, I got a letter back from her saying, well, on second thought, and we started, writing, and then she came up to see me a few times, and then.
Is she single at this point?
Today?
No. Was she single? Because you said she had a boyfriend.
Her boyfriend, they had broken up, sometime in the past. At this time, I can't remember when, but she was single. And when I got out, we became boyfriend and girlfriend fairly quick. We ended up getting married a couple years later, and we're still married.
That's your wife?
Yeah.
That's incredible, man. I did not know that.
Yeah. Wow. So, so that's the way that, that happened. And again, it's like, it's like if you want something, like, man, you gotta go for it. If you're a junkie and you want money, you got to go for it. If you're in jail and you want to get out, you got to go for it. If you're stuck in California and you want to get home, man, you got to fucking go for it. You can't just sit underneath a tree. You got to put some effort into it. If you want to, and today it's the same way. If I want to buy an apartment building today, I go for it. I go find the building and I find the money. It's just, that's the way that successful people operate. I don't want to rag on like a huge, portion of the population, but it's the truth. A lot of people will say, they'll see obstacles. Man, McDonald's only pay me $7 an hour. It's like, okay, well then go get another fucking job, go get a job as a plumber's helper, and in 5 years, you're going to be making $25 an hour. You can make French fries for 5 years. You're going to be making maybe $8 an hour. So it's like, people just see these obstacles and they don't really look for ways around them. When I got out, I also got a job before I got out. I was in pre-release, and I think they paid me like $3.25 a day. And I would go out on a truck from the prison, and I would go to these different office buildings to like drop off like furniture in state office buildings. And there was one factory we went to where they made some of the furniture. They had like the raw metal for like the frames for chairs and tables, and they like dipped it in the solution, and it came out with a chrome plating on it. And I'd been there a couple times. And the owner, his name was Bernie something. And I came up to him one day and I said, listen, Bernie, I'm going to be home in a few weeks. I'm going to be looking for a job. Like, I'm in jail, but I'm going to be looking for a job. If you would consider hiring me, I would gladly take the job. And he said, man, come see me when you get out.
Wow.
And so like the day after I got out, I went and saw him, and I had a job making $6 an hour working in a factory. And I'd also applied to UMBC, which is one of the local University of Maryland colleges. I was a biochem, molecular biology major of all things. And I applied for admission there. They accepted me, and I was full disclosure, like, look, man, I got a tier degree. I was locked up, but
they knew it. Yeah.
Yeah. I wasn't going to lie about it. It's like, I would rather just tell them the truth and them say no than lie and then them find out later and get
kicked.
And
then be like, what the fuck? Yeah.
So, I went to school for a couple years, majoring in biochem and molecular biology. And then I found out I got a job working as a lab technician, but there's not a lot of money in that. There's not a lot of opportunity. And, but the IT stuff was where it was at. Like those were the people that got a year's experience and they're making $100,000 a year.
Yeah.
And I switched majors. I'm just like, I'm getting out of this. And a friend told me, a guy that was in the IT business, he's like, man, don't waste your time with college. You're going to graduate with a 4-year degree. You won't even have to hook up a printer. Said, what you want to do is go get these certifications, these computer certifications. So while I'm working as a lab technician, I dropped out of college. I'm working full-time as a lab technician. And I'm, reading these books on Microsoft certified this and Microsoft certified that, and A+ for computer repair. And I just started studying all these books, and I started taking the tests, and I started getting the certifications. And, 6 months later, I left the fucking lab tech job and got a job making $15 an hour leg mason. I was a temp. They call you consultants. I was a consultant. I wasn't consulting anything, man. I'm an entry level computer guy working on a help desk. I don't know anything, but I got the job. I got my foot in the door, and I was there for 6 months, and I was a really good employee. And my boss, Myrna, who I've recently just found on LinkedIn, and her and I have spoken a couple times since then. She calls me in her office and she says, "Mark, listen, I'm really pleased to announce that Legg Mason wants to hire you full time. You'll benefits, vacation, you're going to make more money." And I looked at her and I said, "Myrna, there's something I have to tell you. I'm a felon. I was locked up. I got out of jail like 4 or 5 years ago." And she looked at me, and like I could see like the air sucked out of her. She was like really, like I could tell she was already hurt. And she says, "I got to call HR and ask them." She called HR, and she hung up, and I could see like her eyes tearing up. And she said, "I am so sorry. Security's on their way here now to get you. They're going to take you to your desk to get your things, and then they're going to escort you out of the building."
Wow. Yeah.
And, but again, it's like, I knew it's like, this is my fault. I should have listened to my mother, shouldn't have done drugs, shouldn't have committed these crimes. Like, this is the price you pay. This is it. Yeah. And this is 100% my fault.
You're taking responsibility for everything. That's the common theme throughout the whole entire show.
And she was really upset, and she felt like it was very, like just mean-spirited or cold. It's like, this guy's doing so well and he's getting ahead. And it's like, but apparently there's like, SEC rules or something. Like, you can't have some guy working in a financial institution that just got out of, jail, like having access to all this stuff. And I got it. And, so I went out and I worked on the 25th floor in a window overlooking the Baltimore Inner Harbor. And, 15 minutes later, I'm like, now I'm down on the sidewalk, like looking up at
what
my
the hell?
window. And and thinking like, all right, what am I going to do? Because it's like my whole life, from the age of 12 had been like, overcoming obstacles. And so I thought I'm comfortable with that. If something happens and I got to figure out a way around it, that's like, if I have a strength, that's it, is figuring out my way around obstacles. So I thought, okay, well, this is an opportunity to find another job where I can learn more and make more money. So I did. At my next job, I think I started Legg Mason at 15, left there making 18, started my next job making 20, doing level 2 support. We were actually going to desks, fixing stuff. Got out of that, left there 6 months later making 25, started another job as a network engineer. I went from help desk to level 2 to network engineer in like 18 months. Went from making $15 an hour to $30 an hour in 18 months. There's a couple reasons for that. First off, it was the industry, but it was also like, I'm looking for opportunities. I wasn't afraid to say, look, I've been here a few months. I'm a great employee, never late, always on time, stay late if you need me, but I need more money, and I always got the raises every time I asked. Every single time I got a raise. Even when I was a lab technician, I did the same thing.
You don't ask, you always know,
Yeah, right. You got to lose, You got everything to gain and nothing to lose. And when I was working, and this is where my life really changed, another time where it really changed. So I'm working as this network admin guy, and I got a call from another headhunter saying, "Hey, we got a company that's going to teach these computer classes over the internet. You interested?" And my question is, how much does it pay? Well, $35 an hour. So, yeah, I'll take that. I was still trying to get ahead. I mean, think about this. When I got out of jail, I was like 29. Most of my peers, like the peers that were in my life, most of them today are dead. They've OD'd or something like that. Most of the friends that I had from that time are dead. But the friends like that my wife had, 29 years old, they got a house, they got a career, they're married, they got kids. I get out of jail, everything I own will fit in a suitcase. Like I got $500 in the bank, and I got a suitcase full of jail clothes. My parents, my parents lent me, they lent me money to buy a 1987 Honda Civic, and I had a job making $6 an hour in a factory.
Yeah.
So that's the bottom,
literally.
And I was a felon, and I was just like, so like, man, I'm like way behind. It's like like I really got to fucking put a lot of effort into like, because I want to catch up. I don't want to be like a bum forever. I want to catch up, and I just put this shit in high gear. And so I get this job teaching over the internet, $35 an hour. And I meet another guy there. I can't remember, I think it was like Gerald Butler or something like that. And I find out Gerald's making $100 an hour doing the same thing I'm doing. I'm making 35, Gerald's making 100. I'm like, so Gerald, why are you making
what are you doing
3 times what I'm making? And he said, well, I'm a Microsoft certified trainer. I'm like, okay, what do I do to become that? You have to have your MCSC. Okay, I got that. You got to take a train-the-trainer course. Okay, where do I take that? And 3 months later, I was Microsoft certified trainer.
Tell me you're making 100 an hour at that point.
Yeah, I left that company to go to another company called Leap It, where I started teaching these MCSE, Microsoft Certified Systems Engineer classes in colleges all over Maryland, and some private contracts like for FAA, or I actually was teaching internet security to NSA, which is like crazy. And they offered me a job. I got 2 job offers the same day. This is a rich dad, poor dad kind of moment where I got one job offer 4 miles from my house, paying $70,000 a year. And, look, you're off work at 3 o'clock every day, you get benefits and all. And then the other job offer was as a contract trainer, where they said, we're going to pay you if you work, I think it was like 12 days a month. They'll pay me $6,000 a month to work 12 days. And then every day that I work above that, they'll pay me $700 a day. And if I teach evening classes, they'll pay me $350 to teach evening classes per day. So I'm like, oh yeah, so I went with that.
Yeah, I went with that.
And there's a couple lessons with this story too. So I took that job and I started, if I was teaching like low level stuff like A+ or Net+, that's like computer repair stuff. It only paid $50 an hour, but I loved it. Like I was really good at that. And this is where I got over my fear of public speaking, because up until that point, the only public speaking I ever did was in front of a judge, just like, yes, Your Honor, no, Your Honor. It's like, these people, that's the only public speaking a lot of us ever do. And, but once I got up in front of that classroom, and I realized that I'm like really good at taking something that's really complex, like converting hexadecimal to decimal or vice versa, or, whatever, and breaking that shit down into little parts and then showing how they're all related. I was really able to make an impact on people's lives, where I could break down complex stuff and everybody would walk out like, man, that was so easy. I've been taught that by 5 other people and I never understood it. Now it all makes sense. And so I started to get a different kind of confidence where I wasn't so much of an introvert anymore. I was enjoying, being speaking in front of people and making a difference in their lives. And that actually continues to this day, but that's how I broke into the whole speaking thing, and realizing that I enjoy, if you're talking about something that you're confident that you're talking about,
you know what you're doing. Yeah.
And you know what you're doing, and you know that you're helping people, like people want to hear it, then it's easy to do. It's enjoyable. Yeah. When you see people and the lights going off and they get excited and they're thinking, man, that's a good idea. I never thought of that. It's like, I get so much joy from doing that.
Yeah. More. Yeah. That's interesting.
I'll break right now. Do you have any questions before I continue?
I'm just blown away by the story, to be honest with you, man. Like, I have not heard it in this much detail. I mean, we went like, this is like some next level. I mean, you were like this, we started this podcast. You were literally like homeless in West Hollywood. Now, obviously now we're all the way up to the point right before you got into real estate. We're going to end on that note with the real estate stuff. And then obviously we have 2 more full shows on you, breaking that down. But like, yeah, now you're making $150,000 at the point before you started going into your real estate journey, right?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. I'd been in the computer business like maybe 3-4 years, and I was making $150,000.
150 grand. So that achievement alone here, let's be honest here. That achievement alone, you went from being in jail, a felon, getting arrested, running from the cops, to making $150,000 a year back in the day. This isn't even today. This is like 20 freaking years ago. That was a lot of money.
It was like the year 2000, about the year 2000.
So that was, what do you think $150,000 in 2000 was in today's money? Like 300?
I don't know if it's doubled, but I'd say north of two.
North of $200,000 from a guy who got out of freaking jail, who dropped out of college. So the people listening to this, if Mark can do it, you can do it. I mean, this is like, and that's why I was so excited to bring Mark on the show for the third time today, because you guys got to just listen to the show more than once, first and foremost, because what Mark has been able to achieve is truly remarkable. And there's a reason he's been on my show 3 times as a guest, right? Because the guy's impressive. So Mark, as we start to transition towards the back half of the show, or the end of the show, really, I want you to just kind of, we have 2 full shows on you talking about your real estate journey, right? But let's high level, where are you at today? It's October 30th, 2019, with your real estate and your business, and most importantly, your mindset and your philosophy on life. And we'll end on that note.
Yeah, man, that's a really good question. Today, my life is going better than I could have ever imagined. I mean, ever. I've got attorneys that call me up and ask me if I want to borrow money from them. I mean, it's like, I would have been calling them 30 years ago, asking if they could like get me out of jail. And now they're pulling money.
Yeah.
My wife is absolutely amazing. I have one son. He has far exceeded any expectations that I ever had. He's just a fantastic son. I have a great relationship with my parents, that's healed from, all the trouble that I put them through. I've got the respect of people now that wouldn't have given me the time of day. They would have crossed, if they saw me on the corner 30 years ago, they'd have crossed the street. And now many of those people like respect me. And those are like some of the best things, the most important things to me. The real estate stuff has given me a kind of freedom that I couldn't have even like really dreamed about when I started, because I just thought I'm just going to get some rentals to just, if I lose my job because I say something stupid or, get hurt or whatever, because I can say some really dumb shit. Like that's just me. I'm kind of blunt, I can be blunt, and I have a kind of a warped sense of humor sometimes. So I could say some inappropriate things in a public setting. And so I just thought I'm gonna buy some rentals, just, in the event something happens, I got some money coming in. And, and then a few months later, I thought like, man, this is like really great. I'm going to buy some more. And, it wasn't for like another, maybe 18 months into it that I started to see the full potential of what was possible. Maybe it's probably 18 months, maybe 2 years when I really started to realize like, man, if I keep doing what I'm doing, like, I don't have to work for other people anymore. Like I can retire and, from the regular workforce. I still work, but I can retire from the traditional workforce like in my early 40s. And once I realized that, man, it was just like, man, game on. I mean, I'm good at like, here's the goal, what I got to do to get there. And if there's an obstacle, how do I get around the obstacle? And that means, it's like, I don't care if I'm living on the streets and got nothing to eat, or I need to get a car, I need to borrow somebody else's car without their consent. It's like whatever, if the obstacle, whatever it is, I'm really good at figuring out ways around it. And then that's something that I figured out. I think a lot of that is because, when I'm going to give you a great example, and I don't want to spend too much time on this because I know we've already like probably exceeded what your time limit is.
This is a special show, man. This is a special show. I wanted this to go a little bit longer. I knew this would go longer, which is a good thing.
I got kicked out of a drug rehab in Alexandria, Virginia. It was December of, I don't remember the year, like 87 or something like that. I got $8 in my pocket and I got a suitcase. And I was going to violate my probation by getting kicked out of this drug rehab. So it was either get back to Baltimore and go to jail or go somewhere else. So it's like, all right, I'm going to be living on the street because I can't go home. So where do you go in December? You go to Florida, right? You go south. So I hitchhiked to Florida, got down. It took a few days, man. But I think I got from California to Baltimore as fast as I got from Alexandria to Jacksonville. Yeah. Ate Christmas dinner in a homeless shelter. And then you know, the next day I'm like talking to homeless people and bums on the street and all this. And I went, that homeless shelter, I did not stay there. I never spent the night in one because it's like you got to listen to 2 hours of preaching, then you eat, and then you got to listen to like 2 more hours of preaching before you can go to bed. And I'm just like, man, I just listened to 2 hours of that. I ate. I'm going to go sleep underneath a bridge, and which is exactly what I did. And then, you know, I found out I want to get a job. Like I want to get my shit together. Like I'm still just struggling to like get my shit together. And I'm sitting here thinking like, fuck, man, if I get a job, like I don't get paid for 2 weeks. How am I going to eat? Because I can't go to the homeless shelters and shit like that if I'm at work. And then I thought, okay, well, here's the problem. I got to work and I got to eat. What if you get a job at a place that has food and then you can eat while you're at work? That's what I did. I got a job at a hot dog stand in Jacksonville Landing, which is kind of like Baltimore's Inner Harbor. I think it was built by the same company. So I got a job working in a hot dog stand indoors, and I was a hot dog eating mofo, man. I mean, out there, it's like that's all I got to eat. And I found some other guys who were like, man, this mailman, he's a crackhead, but he rents rooms out of his house. So I went and talked to the mailman. I'm like, hey, mailman, look, I don't get paid for a couple of weeks, but I'll pay you as soon as I get my check. Like, I'll write it over to you. Can I stay here? And he says, yeah, you can stay here. And so now I'm living with a mailman and a bunch of crackheads in a crack house and working at a hot dog stand, eating hot dogs. And that's a whole other story. But the whole thing is, you know, the point is that there are ways around stuff. Yeah. You live in the street, got nothing to eat, you want to get a job at a place that has food. And then you can eat when you're at work. You know, I mean, there's ways around stuff. And
there's a will, there's a way, you know?
Yeah, and that's still, I wouldn't suggest everybody just run out and be homeless for a year. But the skills that I learned from those experiences transfer into like just a way of thinking where it's, you know, you can say, man, I don't have money to buy a house, or that apartment building's, you know, $700,000 and I've only got $10,000 in the bank. Okay. So that's the problem. Now let's look for the solution, because there is a solution. Yeah, there is, it's there. And a lot of people just say, well, you need 150 grand to buy the apartment building. I don't have it, so I'm not going to buy it. That's bullshit. If you live your whole life like that, you're really selling yourself short. You're going to live up to 50% of your potential at best. You know, if you say that and you say, okay, how can I get that money? Well, let me make some phone calls. Let me talk to some other people who have done it before. Let me see this guy that I've known for several years, if he'd be interested in partnering. I mean, there's ways around that.
So many ways.
Always a way around it. And I think that coming from that lifestyle that I had and knowing what it feels like to have nothing made me hungry. You know, made me want more, trying to catch up with my peers where, you know, I had nothing and they were, you know, living normal lives. Like I had that hunger where, you know, my wife and I, you know, we had an office cleaning business. I would work Monday through Friday, then Friday night and all day Saturday. We're cleaning toilets, mopping floors, you know, emptying trash cans. I'm doing whatever I can for extra money. It's like, you know, there's no shame to that. It's just like I'm doing honest work. It's something that is needed, and I'm getting paid, you know, it actually kind of well. I was making like $25 an hour cleaning bathrooms, but, you know, whatever it took, and it was whatever it took legally and ethically.
Yeah,
Because again, this is one of the things I wanted to say before is, you know, I was sitting there when I was in jail and I didn't even know who I was. And I was the 11-year-old kid, the good kid. I'm still that person. Like that's who I am today. You can take, I don't care what kind of person you are today. If you start, you know, messing with the drug stuff and you get hardcore with that, it changes you, but it's only temporary. Once you pull that drug away, you can get back to the person you were before you ever started. And so one of the reasons that I do very well in this business is I have a lot of tenants that are, you know, different programs for mental health issues, or I've got a couple of tenants that got out of prison and during my apartments, because I have a lot of compassion with these people. And because I know what it's like. And
you've been there. You've literally been there.
Yeah, I have. And I tell them that, you know, it's like, you know, if they start trying some, like, you know, trying to bullshit me, I will, you know, I don't want to use that language, but I'll be like, all right, listen here, motherfucker. You think you're fucking with me? You think I'm just a dumb white boy from, you know, out of the county? Well, here's what's up. And I'll start talking to them in a way that they understand. They're like, oh yeah, man, I can never on this guy. You know, it's like,
you've been there. Yeah.
Exactly. And they don't, you know, it's easy for all of us to make assumptions about people. You know, people, you know, you see some guy on the corner, you see me walking through Home Depot and you just think I'm like some bum that, you know, is probably making $15 an hour digging ditches. I think that. And you see some guy that's, you know, in a suit on Instagram, you know, posing, you know, in front of his Audi or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
Shit, he lives with his mother. You know, it's like,
yeah.
Make these assumptions about
big hat, no cattle.
People go to Miami and go rent, you know, a Lambo and then pose in front of Instagram to put on they don't need that car. And if they do, they're kind of dumb.
Yeah.
You know, taking that car and went and bought an apartment building, you know?
Right. And exactly. So no, there's so many lessons pulled out of this. This is going to be a popular show. I can already tell, obviously, as we're recording this. So Mark, let's end with this note.
Yeah.
Obviously, we started at the bottom. I just want you to share with the listeners, if they haven't heard of you, how many apartments do you own? Like you're not just like some part-time real estate investor. Like you are one of the most successful investors in both. Like, what is your like real estate business? Like just, I want to end there so people can be like, wow, if he can go from there to there, like what's holding me back? Like
I own over 100 doors now. And I've
over
got
100 doors without syndicating. This is like,
I don't syndicate. I got one partner where we got like 14 units together, but like I hardly even count that.
So this is like you literally own 100 doors. It's not like you're like a little mini equity partner and like you literally own.
No. I don't do any of that stuff, man. I do my stuff on my own.
Yeah. So I mean, if Mark can go from a homeless drug addict to a multi-millionaire in real estate, owning over 100 doors, what's your excuse, right? What's your excuse? And it's not like he got out of the woods when he was 30. So he's you know, he basically in his 20s, he was in jail. He was in and out of rehab. You know, if Mark can do it, people listening to the show, you can do it. That's why Mark hopped on the show for an hour and 15 minutes. And we wanted to get his story out there because this is powerful stuff. If you take this show and you listen to it and you really, you know, understand that if he can do it, you can do it. And Mark, what, if people are inspired by your story and your message, what would be the best way for them to reach out to you? Do you have a website we can direct them to?
Probably email mark@markowens.com. I got a website, markowens.com. That's real estate stuff. I got a Facebook group that I run, Maryland Investors Network. I got an Instagram, Mark Owens REI. What else? LinkedIn is Mark Owens REI. I don't even know why I'm on LinkedIn. I don't have a job. I don't, you know, I don't even know why I'm there. I'm like spam. You know, it's like, you know, people are like looking for jobs as accountants and shit like that. And they're like, well, who the fuck's this guy? Why is he doesn't even have a job?
He doesn't even have a job. Yeah.
He's a felon. We wouldn't hire him anyway. You know?
Yeah. Mark, this has been so awesome. I'm so happy we were able to get this, you know, the real background on Mark Owens, like the story before he became the Mark Owens you're known for today. This is going to help a lot of people. And I really appreciate you being vulnerable, number one, and number two, opening up the door and sharing everything, because it's certainly not easy to do that, especially
one
some of the
thing I want to say before we close.
Love it.
And this is the stuff that changed everything for me. You can if you think you can. You really can, but you have to believe in yourself. And if you're like a dude, like you understand what I'm about to say, like if you're going to go like get in a fight with somebody and you're walking into the ring and you're thinking, man, this guy's going to fuck me up. You already lost.
You're done.
You're already done. Like you have to go in there. I don't care how big the guy is or whatever. You have to go in there thinking, I'm going to take I'm going to take his head off. I'm going to do it. And you still might not, but your chances of doing it are a hell of a lot better if you believe in yourself than if you don't. That same philosophy applies to everything in life. The girl, she said, no, don't write her anymore. I wrote her back. You know, it's like I got my first IT job. Security escorted me out to the front door. 2 years later, I was making $100 an hour. It's like that's, you know, take those no's and instead of using that to turn it inside and into defeat, just make that a reason to find another way around that obstacle and to ignite your passion even more. I promise you, if you follow those steps right there, success beyond your wildest dreams is possible. It happened to me. It's happened to many others that I know. Sometimes I wake up and I feel like I don't even deserve the life that I have because it is so fucking good. And the truth is that it's like there's enough out there for all of us. Like I'm not hogging up all the good shit. Like, man, there's enough out there for all of us, but I can't like make you take it. You have to take the steps yourself, but it's there, man. It's fucking there. And if I can leave on any note, that's it, man. You can if you think you can, but you got to fucking do it.
Love it, Mark. This is going to be a great one. Thank you so much for your time. And I'm sure